Welcome to the DEFCON Warning System Digest. My name is Thomas Lonelywolf. I'm the director of the DEFCON Warning System. Well, Iran has been in the news quite a lot lately with the capture of the British ship. However, this is not all that Iran has been doing. In fact, a lot of the stuff that Iran has been doing has fallen off the news feed. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell you everything that's been going on, including the stuff that the news has forgotten about, has fallen off the cliff or whatever, so you get a really good picture of what's going on. For the record, today is July 22nd, 2019. This is an unfolding situation, so by the time this digest gets out, something else may have happened. So we will always keep you up to date on our website, www.defconwarningsystem.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, DEFCON WS Alerts. Don't just go to DEFCON. If you just do DEFCON, that will be the hacker group. You don't want them. DEFCON WS Alerts. We also have a YouTube channel, DEFCON Warning System. That one, it's probably better to follow us on Twitter, but on the YouTube channel, you'll actually hear these digests as well as our podcast feed. So lots of ways to contact us. We also have a community forum where you can interact with us. That's the best place. Facebook is not a good place to interact with us. We don't have time to devote ourselves to, 1,000 different communication channels. The community forum is the place to get in direct contact with the DEFCON staff. We do follow Twitter. We do read the stuff on Facebook. We don't have time to interact. So if you want to interact with us, the community forum at defconwarningsystem.com is where you want to interact with us. Okay, going on to what has been happening. Of course, everybody knows that Iran captured a British ship. This was in retaliation for Britain capturing an Iranian ship, which they say was going to Syria and it had illegal cargo. So Iran specifically said that this was in retaliation. Now, before I go more into that, because what comes out of this is going to be very important, it's also important for you to understand what happened several days before this. This is the stuff that fell off the news. It was in the news when it happened, but most everybody has forgotten about this. It was just a few weeks ago that Iran shot down a U.S. drone, and that caused all sorts of brouhaha. I mean, there was actually some shooting going on. So the DEFCON level did go up a little bit because we weren't quite sure how the United States was going to respond. And in fact, the United States came very close to actually bombing Iran. According to reports, they were just a few hours away from dropping a few missiles onto Iran. And then the United States backed off, feeling that, a drone was not worth lives. Whether that was actually true or not that whether a drone was worth lives, but whether the United States actually intended to bomb Iran or whether that was just propaganda in order to make the United States look more merciful, realistic, keeping things in proportion, we don't really know. So we'll go with what just actually happened rather than what we're supposed to happen. What actually happened was the United States, instead of bombing Iran, they just decided to engage in some cyber sabotage as well as a whole new round of sanctions. Iran is having a lot of trouble with these sanctions. Their economy is not doing well. There's a lot of protests going on in Iran now. When I say a lot of protests, you gotta keep that in proportion because the government keeps a pretty tight control over what goes on in that country. We're not talking, North Korea or China's style of suppression, but it's pretty close. You got the secret police out there, or the police that are out in the open will just come and kidnap you and chop your head off if they don't like what you're doing over there. So Iran's got a pretty tight control of what's going on there, but their economy is not doing well, and more sanctions are being applied by Britain over this shipping thing. We'll get back to that. Let's go back to what I was just talking about. So the United States engaged some cyber sabotage and more sanctions, and so like I said, we were at blue for a little while, but when nothing came out of that, we did go back down to green. The DEFCON level, it's really trying to get into the head of what someone else may do, and it's the same thing with Russia and Ukraine. How far is Russia going to go? What's the United States going to do? And so as more of these incidents occur, we're able to get a better idea of what someone is going to do, how someone is going to react. There is a great outcry over, how come we were at blue instead of yellow, DEFCON 3, or some people were saying DEFCON 2. We actually had someone for this incident over the ship. Someone said we should be at DEFCON 1. Try and keep things in proportion, people. I don't know. Some people just seem to be wanting, nuclear war. But so anyway, nothing came out of that incident of shooting down the drone. The United States actually did shoot down an Iranian drone that flew too close to one of its ships. Iran says that didn't happen, that the United States shot down their own drone. Well, Iran puts out a lot of propaganda, read lies. So I think it's pretty safe to say that the United States also retaliated by shooting down an Iranian drone. So the flurry started, and Iran is also accused of attacking shipping in the area, bombing targets. Let's not forget that. They attacked a few ships. Iran denies this. Great Britain, like I said, seized an Iranian vessel, while Iran attempted and failed to seize a British ship. So this wasn't the first time Iran has attacked a British ship. The head of the UN Atomic Watchdog reports that Iran has followed through on a threat to accelerate its production of enriched uranium and has broken through an enriched uranium limit set in the nuclear deal. Additionally, Iran says it will enrich uranium to any amount it wants. So they've laid the threat out there that they can enrich uranium to weapons grade, which is 90%. So right now they're at like I can't remember the number. They're below 20. They're at like 15, 16, something like that. Please don't make me look it up. I'm sure there's people who are going to chime in on the message boards and things like that. Well, this is their actual percent. Oh, good. It's less than 20. The reason I focused on 20 is because that is the threshold that a lot of experts look at as once you reach 20, it's not a great deal of effort to make it to weapons grade. It's exponential in its growth. So it takes a long time to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 to 7. But once you hit 20, then you're kind of on a roller coaster ride to weapons grade. So that's why everyone kind of focuses on that 20% magic number. But like I said, Iran has stuck it out there that they're going to do any amount at once. Meanwhile, the United States is sending additional troops to the Middle East. They're sending troops to Saudi Arabia, and most of these troops are intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and force protection units. Well, you can guess what force protection units are. So that's where our last update on the 11th left us. So now we move on to when Iran has captured a British ship. Now this wasn't the first. This wasn't the only ship that they captured. They actually captured 2. 3. There was reports of a 4th. They let the other 2 go. They let one go almost immediately. Another one they let go a little while later, and they're holding on to one. Very clearly, this is all about tit for tat. You took one of ours. We're going to take one of yours. But what is significant about this is Britain's reaction. Now, the United States has talked about a force protection unit. Didn't I just use that phrase? Force protection unit. Yeah, they're talking about protection units in the Strait and the Gulf of Oman and that whole area up there in order to protect the oil shipments. Right now, we're kind of in a wait and see pattern to see what Europe wants to do about this, what Great Britain wants to do about this. Great Britain's response to the seizure of their vessel, it's being read as pretty weak by Iran. Instead of just marching over there with military units, freeing the ship, striking Iran, they've decided to go the sanction route for now. Now, we can get into the moral argument of, nobody's been killed, they've only been captured, there's no reason to escalate this into an actual war. The thing you have to understand is your actions being interpreted by the other guy. The fact that Britain hasn't already stormed the port to get the ship back, the fact that they haven't even threatened to do that, and I don't know if you actually can threaten, because back in 1979, when Iran took American hostages, when the United States sent a rescue group in there that failed, the first thing they did was disperse the hostages. So if Britain went storming in, or at least threatened to storm in there to free the ship, the first thing that Iran would do was separate the hostages, just spread them out. So I don't know what good that would do, but the fact is, you have to make a strong show out of your reaction. And the fact of the matter is, Britain's response so far has been fairly weak. Now, I know there are those out there who say, you want to start shooting people? We can't be looking at this in the way we wish things would work out. We have to look at the way at how these things are. Iran is going to look at Britain's response as very weak, whether you like it or not. And if that's the kind of response you want to give, then you're going to have to expect Iran to make bolder moves in the future. Unfortunately, that's the way the world works, whether you like it or not. If somebody robs your house, are you just going to, slap them on the wrist, give them a cup of tea, and send them on their way? Or are you going to wrestle them to the ground, shoot them, and make sure that they don't do this again, and send a message out there to others saying, don't do this, or this is what's going to happen to you? Well, Britain has taken the former position, and unfortunately, this is just going to encourage Iran more. Now, let me just say, I'm not advocating. It does really sound like I'm advocating for Britain doing more. Okay, I'm human, and I kind of let my own personal opinion kind of slip in there a little bit. But from a strictly analysis viewpoint, Britain's actions are going to be read by Iran as very weak. In fact, we can kind of see this in Iran's government. There was a big celebration in Iran's parliament. Is that what they're called? Parliament? I can't remember, and I'm not going to go look it up. But there's a big celebration over the capture of the British ship, and some lawmakers actually proposed slapping a toll on shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for those of you who remember the movie Countdown to Looking Glass, and I'll give you a second to go look it up on YouTube, Countdown to Looking Glass, one of the premise of the movie was that the country of Oman slapped a toll on people traveling through what it claimed were its waterways, and it claimed the entire area. So that's what was part of what sparked World War III, this toll. And when a ship ran the toll and a Soviet sub sank it, the United States got involved, and that's where things just kind of blew up from there. So Iran putting a toll on ships passing through the area kind of reminded me of that. In fact, I actually went and watched that movie last night. I have it on DVD. It was very reminiscent of that movie. Iran also made a statement that it wants to inspect every ship that goes through the area for environmental crimes or whatever excuse they wanted to come up with. But what is frightening about what happened, the capture of the ship, is we were able to see, and there is a video out there of how quickly Iran was able to capture the ship, how effective their swift boats were. And you have to kind of ask yourself, what defense does a large ship like a destroyer or even an aircraft carrier have against these small swift boat type ships that are hard to lock onto, hard to shoot down, and just a few shoulder mounted missiles can do a lot of damage to a ship. So there's a question of what can a large navy do to stop these kind of attacks. So that's where we're standing right now. Iran has successfully captured a British ship. Iran has a very effective means of capturing ships. They're threatening to do it again. Britain has put forth a pretty milquetoast response to Iran's capture. The United States is talking about a protection force out in the Gulf. Fortunately, Russia has kind of stayed out of this so far. They said that Iran being on their border, they don't want this situation to escalate, but so far they've kind of stayed out of this, so that's kind of a good thing. The wild card is Israel. If any action breaks out in the area, Iran is going to start pelting down on Israel to try and drag them, get them involved, and thus get other countries involved. So the potential for this is, there's always a potential for something in the Gulf region to spiral out of control. That's kind of why we went to blue last time when the drone was shot down. Not so much because the drone was shot down, not because we believe that a big war was going to blow up in the area over this. The United States was going to, send a bunch of troops in there. What worried us before was what Iran was going to do to Israel and how Israel might react to that. That's what kind of made us a little bit nervous. That's why we thought that the public should start keeping a better eye on this area. And that's kind of where we are still right now. What is going to happen if something breaks out in the area? What is Israel going to do? How is Iran going to react? What are they going to do to Israel if the United States and Iran start getting into it? It doesn't look like Britain and Iran are going to get into it, although I do believe Britain has sent a ship into the area, but it doesn't look like they're really going to do anything to it. Like I said, very milquetoast response, very weak response, and the Iranians are just kind of laughing at it. So there's probably an offer out there, even if it's unsaid, give us our ship back, we'll give you your ship back. What that will do in the future, well, Iran is kind of emboldened right now because of the response that they have received so far. So look for more of this to happen in the future. This is going to be a very unstable region, especially with more sanctions being slapped on, especially over this nuclear deal that was never really a deal because the United States never really approved of it. It was just a one-man deal between a country. It didn't have a force of law. And I'm saying this not to justify the United States pulling out of it, but a lot of people have a misconception of what the deal was. This nuclear deal was not a deal between the United States and Iran. It was a deal between the person who occupied the White House and Iran. And because the president back then didn't run the deal through Congress, it had no effective law. It was just his word to Iran. And unfortunately, between presidents, those don't carry any weight. So there was no deal for the United States to back out of. So that's kind of like the legal look at the deal. I know a lot of people kind of wish that the United States had kept with the deal. Unfortunately, it's our belief that Iran never followed the deal. The nuclear deal put way too many restrictions on any international inspectors. It wasn't anytime, anywhere. It was, you have to tell us when you're coming. You have to give us 30 days notice, and you were restricted on where you were going. And as we know, Iran has other research facilities. They have other areas where they develop their nuclear weapons. So whatever the International Atomic Energy Agency was looking at, it wasn't what Iran was doing. It was what Iran was showing. So there kind of was no nuclear deal. So there you are. We will definitely be revisiting Iran in the probably near future. This is not an area that's going to go away anytime. This has been an area that's been a problem since the days of Abraham, when the two half brothers split and the blessing went to one brother, not the other. So this is a blood feud that's going on. So we're not going to be done with this until the second coming. So we will continue to monitor the situation. We do advise the public to just keep an ear out for what's going on. This kind of situation can unravel very quickly. And I hate to say this, but we also have to be careful of, well, I hate to use the phrase fake news. With the advent of the internet, there's a lot of people out there who monitor radio traffic and look at satellite. And the problem is everybody is so quick to be the first one to get the scoop that there's a lot of misinformation and misinterpretation going on out there. That's one of the reasons why DEFCON, we take a little time to analyze the situation and make sure we're getting the right information out there. So we may not be the first one to get the information out there. Like, we certainly weren't the first one to get out there that Iran had captured a ship. We wanted to make sure that this is what was actually happening, and it wasn't just, it wasn't misinterpretation. It wasn't just somebody, playing hoax or whatever, or misreading the situation. And these things do take time. Also, flash news is not something that we actually do. We're an organization that does analysis, so we have to gather the information and release to you an appropriate alert code for just in case something really does go wrong. So we do thank you for your support. I thank you for the words of encouragement that we had from you during this incident. A lot of people were very, very nice to us, thanked us for what we do, and that does make us feel good. So lets us know that we're doing something right. So like I said, please visit us, defconwarningsystem.com. Thank you for turning off your ad blocks. That's what helped. That's the advertising is what helps pay for the system, the service. We do have donations. We do have an affiliate with My Patriot Supply. If you go down there, it's at the bottom of the page, or it's on our link section. If you go to My Patriot Supply by using the link, we do get a little kickback from that, a little commission, but Basically, it's the advertisements that help us to run the site. We thank you for turning off your ad blockers because, I know how much of a pain in the neck those things can be hard to look at. And every once in a while, there's actually something interesting to look at. But like I said, visit us at DEFCONWarningSystem.com. Visit us at Twitter, DEFCON WS Alerts. We do have a YouTube channel, DEFCON Warning System. We do have a podcast where you're listening to this. Hopefully you're listening to this on our podcast. And look for our next update, August 1st, 2019.